When it comes to any piece of media, there's going to be moments throughout that media's runtime that people collectively agree are the highlights of that particular media. And when it comes to media franchises like Ben 10, there are plenty of highlights to talk about. While some will try and aim to be objective about what moments within a franchise are the best, having favourite moments is, by nature, a subjective topic. Some Ben 10 moments that are subjectively pretty good would be, let's say, Ben's first battle with Vilgax, Weybig's debut, Vilgax vs Diamond Head, Humungosaur vs Ultimate Humungosaur, Kevin calling Ben his best friend, literally any Dr. Animo scene, Gwen and Kevin's dance, Alien X creating the universe again, and so on. Within Ben 10, there are plenty of great scenes that a lot of people can unanimously agree are some of the greatest highs for the franchise as a whole. However, there are always those who, whether they agree that moments like these are good or not, have a favourite scene that isn't one that people commonly discuss. And that goes for any media. With something as large as Ben 10, there are bound to be those who can find appreciation in moments that completely slipped under the radar for others. Those who are far too focused on being amazed by the big and flashy moments of the franchise instead. And don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with liking something popular, because it's more than likely popular for a good reason. I am one such person whose tastes often fall outside of the norm for Ben 10 fans, as I'm sure a lot of my opinions would indicate. My favourite moment isn't something big and grand like Upchuck defeating the Forever King or the Prime Timeline's finale, but rather a scene that is short, sweet, and profoundly beautiful in its metaphorical symbolism. You see, I was big on English in school, and one of my favourite things to do in school was dissecting the metaphorical meaning behind different literatures. I've always found it interesting how one can glean unseen value from something by stopping to think about what exactly the original creator was trying to say with their work. And while I know that that isn't for everyone, it is what has allowed me to find such passion for the things that I enjoy, taking my time to slowly pick through everything and form together my own understanding of a narrative's meaning. But as I was saying, my favourite scene in all of Ben 10 isn't a scene that you'll hear often discussed, because at face value, one could even say that it was just a bit of padding or filler to stretch out an episode. But it means a whole lot to me personally, and so today, I want to finally share what exactly that scene is, and why exactly it means so much to me. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. It's hero time! So, my favourite moment throughout the entire Ben 10 franchise comes from none other than Ben 10 Ultimate Alien, the franchise's third installment. Ultimate Alien as a whole really did a lot for me growing up and as a Ben 10 fan today, with my favourite design for my favourite alien coming from there, as well as my second favourite villain, some of my favourite moments of character interaction, and so on. Ben 10 Ultimate Alien is a series that I really truly do hold dearly, and I know that a lot of what I like about it does fall outside of what is typical for a Ben 10 fan. After all, just the mere mention that I like Ultimate Alien's Ripjaw design will start a flame war in the comments, just you watch. But anyway, I'm getting a little bit off track here. My favourite moment comes from none other than the episode Map of Infinity, which might immediately throw some ideas out as to what exactly I'm about to discuss. Perhaps it's the Cannonbolt scene from this episode. After all, I do love Cannonbolt. Or maybe it's the Forearms scene, seeing as UAF Forearms is another design that I really like. Oh, perhaps it's the trash talk Agrigor gives in this episode. That was pretty cool, right?
Always a pleasure to see you, Tennyson. I do appreciate you holding the door for me, Levin. She doesn't look well at all.
Wait, it must be something to do with Ben's frequent transformations during this episode, and how that results in some really good high tension and decent stakes that can't really be found throughout the majority of the rest of the Ben 10 franchise, right? Simple answer, no. My favourite moment from this episode is none other than the interaction between Ben and the group of Necrophrygians who guard the temple that the first Map of Infinity piece can be found within. This scene is special specifically because, in some ways, it doesn't really feel like a Ben 10 scene, but at the same time, it is perhaps the closest Ben 10 ever got to being what it could have been. When Ben and his team meet face to face with these Necrophrygians, their first move isn't just to beat the shit out of them and get inside the temple ASAP, but rather to attempt peaceful negotiations. This may seem like the obvious approach for a group of heroes, but considering how much of Ben 10 is just beating the shit out of people without any regard for who they are or why they're doing what they're doing, moments like this aren't as common as you might be fooling yourself into believing. Ben is usually either negotiated into helping someone and is either tricked or saves the day, or he meets someone and starts beating them up. Even in another episode of Ultimate Alien, Ben encounters Serpent and literally mashes him between a pair of cars without any actual evidence, at least to us viewers, that Serpent was doing literally anything other than just slithering through Bellwood.
My name is Jacksepticeye!
Without even going into any of the details as to why this scene means so much to me, this scene is already different from most scenes within Ben 10, because we are presented with two neutral parties who try to make peace before things then go south. which is something that we don't typically get to witness within this franchise. A lot of characters within Ben 10 are reactionary, and typically only do something because another character or some supernatural phenomenon is making them do it or forcing their hand. But here we are presented with two parties who are acting based on their own interests, and their confrontation results from those separate interests not aligning. But it doesn't immediately break out into a fight, but rather starts with a simple conversation. In this scene, characters are not reactive, but proactive, attempting to hear one another out and meet an agreement instead of just throwing hands on sight. This may not sound like much, but it breaks the Ben 10 formula in more ways than you might think on first viewing. But now, let's dive more into the specifics of this scene and why, outside of just a simple change of formula and pace for Ben 10, this scene has a lot going for it. When they approach the temple to speak with the Necrophrygians, the Guardians are initially uneasy and concerned about these potential intruders, which Ben recognizes and transforms into Big Chill in order to try and come off as less of a threat by becoming the same species as they are, and appeal to them as a familiar face, something that is very much in line with Azimuth's original vision for the Omnitrix. This is what leads to my favourite interaction in the entire Ben 10 franchise, which I'm going to play for you now because me just repeating the words doesn't really hold the same weight as the original scene itself.
You are one of us. I am one of everybody.
I am one of everybody is a line that even as a kid gave me shivers. Hell, I like this line so much that I used it as inspiration for Kiri 14K's theme song name. Sure, I might come off as a bit overdramatic in saying that, but that is exactly why I wanted to use this video to explain why this moment is just so significant to me as a person. To a degree that even as a stupid mouth-breathing brat, I was absolutely enthralled in the meaning behind this moment. Azimuth invented the Omnitrix as a way to bridge the gap between species, as a way to atone for what he had done in creating Ascalon. Where Ascalon destroyed, the Omnitrix was made to make amends, and unite all people as one. The Omnitrix was made so that you could quite literally step into the shoes of another species, and while an ID mask lets you pull that off to a visual degree, that's what the point of the mask is. The Omnitrix outright changes your anatomy so that it is as if you were an individual of that species from the very beginning. Throughout the Ben 10 franchise, Ben has done a lot to bridge the innate gaps that exist between life forms that would be impossible to properly cross without a device like the Omnitrix, that would literally let him see the world through their eyes. Even the scene where he unlocks Master Control and uses it to compare which aliens can shoot the biggest spitwad, despite the fact that it's gross and more than a little immature, is exactly the kind of thing that the Omnitrix was made to do. Not to mention the ways that Ben learned to put the unique evolutionary adaptations of different aliens to different uses in order to save literal billions of lives over the years. While the Omnitrix perhaps wasn't intended to turn its wielder into a species-shifting superhero, this use of the device excels at fulfilling Azimuth's original vision, using alien species to save the lives of other alien species, which, intentional or not, would slowly begin to break down the borders that naturally exist within a person's mind when faced with something unfamiliar to them. Exposure therapy is an outdated but somewhat effective way to help people overcome their fears, and the Omnitrix, in a way, does something similar by exposing people to aliens and showcasing how these aliens can live in harmony with them and even help them through their daily lives. But focusing back in on this particular scene, I think it speaks volumes that the Necrophrygian Guardian's exact words are, "You are one of us." Out of all the things they could have said, I think this choice of words in particular was chosen on purpose. After all, Big Chill and the Guardians are Necrophrygians of different colours, and while this is something that some humans definitely can't seem to wrap around their heads, the concept of race clearly does not exist within Necrophrygian society. There is no innate fear of Big Chill because he is a Necrophrygian of a different colour, but rather there exists only the relief and wonderment of meeting another of their species. This scene speaks not only to the fact that the Omnitrix can make people of different species feel comfortable around one another, but also to the fact that things such as race and sexual identity really aren't that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, despite what we humans may think of it. This Necrophrygian doesn't see Ben as a blue Necrophrygian as opposed to a white Necrophrygian, but rather just another member of the same species, which tells us in a subtle way that Necrophrygians don't think the same way as humans, nor do they put the same things on equal pedestals, which serves to both make the Necrophrygians feel more realistic as unique alien life forms with their own unique cultures, but also serves as a subtle way to speak on the fact that people are people, regardless of how they look. If you want to say that I'm reaching here and that Ben 10 is a kid's cartoon that isn't going to raise such topics, then let me just throw out the fact that Ben 10 has literally made an episode parodying Guantanamo Bay, has marked the nature of the US military multiple times, has spoken on how interspecies relationships between sapient alien life forms would realistically play out, and how they'd be viewed by others, talked about copyright infringement and the corrupt nature of Hollywood, the struggles of parenthood, the absurdity of prearranged marriages, second chances and redemption, personality disorders, genocide, slavery, starting wars purely for the sake of having someone to be angry at and diverting public attention away from the true problems of the society, teen pregnancy, and hell, arguably even gender identity and body dysmorphia as a whole on more than just one occasion. If Ben 10 isn't mature after handling topics like those, then I suppose that Doom Eternal can be rated as an E for everyone, right? Ben 10 is more mature than a lot of people give it credit for, and that is part of why it's still so popular today. Kids can enjoy it for the simple things, and adults can go back and enjoy it all over again with new perspectives and understandings. This scene means so much to me because it shows the true depths of one's empathy. Empathy is a powerful and unfortunately uncommon emotion amongst the human race, but it is something that shines through in scenes like the one we've been discussing today. Sure, Ben's personality was heavily butchered in Alien Force Season 3 and onward by Cartoon Network, but the fact that scenes like this still exist even after that proves that Ben 10 can be written in more mature ways and still be incredibly enjoyable both for adults and children, at least if my own personal experience is anything to go by. One of my favourite moments from Ben's character as a whole is his desperation to meet Azimuth after believing he's lost Gwen, where he refused to be ignored after going through all that he did just to meet a person who, at least in that moment, would maybe be able to fix his watch but never be able to bring back someone who he loved and yet took for granted.
I've come too far! I've lost too much to be stopped now!
People say that Ben Tennyson became too responsible too fast, but I think that this scene from Secrets of the Omnitrix was the beginning of that arc. Not to mention that with 5 years and by Omniverse trauma, they helped shape him into who he became. Ben in that scene, early Alien Force and this particular Ultimate Alien scene is perhaps one of my favourite characters in all of media, and someone who I truly believe deserves the title of Hero of Heroes. This scene shows that empathy exists in all sapient life, and though perhaps most of us aren't able to show it or even recognise that we are capable of it, there can be mutual understanding between anyone who is willing to listen to another, even if they do not agree. But with all that said, that's about all I have to say with this video. I don't usually like to do this, mostly because it makes me feel a little bit cheesy and selfish, but if you could, liking this video, leaving a comment and replying to other people's comments, and sharing this video around to anybody else who you think might be interested, perhaps on the Ben 10 subreddit, would be a big help to me and my channel, and it would mean a lot. We talked a lot about empathy and kindness and mutuality today, so maybe we can get this video around to those in the Ben 10 fandom who aren't so open-minded, and possibly help make this fandom a little bit less toxic than it otherwise could be, and a whole lot more loving. But enough of the preachy stuff. I do hope that you enjoyed this video and that you now have at least a little bit more of an understanding and appreciation for my favourite moment throughout Ben 10 as a whole. And with that, let's move into our usual post-video rituals. So first of all, big shout out to our channel's Thunderbeasts. Riverjoy, Hearn_, Minil Muir, Victor Matusik, Charscream AA, and Plasma6. If you want to help support the channel like them, please consider becoming a member today or donating to my PayPal, link in the description. Now, let's move into last video's poll, where I asked you guys if you preferred humanoid, animalistic, or truly alien aliens. With 1,627 votes, 21% of you said humanoid aliens were your favourite, 13% of you said that animalistic aliens were your favourite, and a whopping 66% of you said that the truly alien aliens are your favourites. Personally, my favourite are the alien aliens. I like in sci-fi when aliens aren't just humans, and sometimes the animalistic ones look a little bit too much like Earth animals for my liking, so it's always good to see designs that are really truly out there in terms of what they're trying to achieve. So now let's give a big shout out to everyone who correctly guessed that my favourite are the alien aliens. So, big shout out to Leon Dyer 3855, Char Jacob, Nathan T29, The Corruptor 985, John Mosby 634, Double XE, Earthworm Warrior, and Alice Rad. Congratulations to all you guys for guessing correctly. Now, let's move into this video's poll. This time, I'm going to be asking you guys which dedicated muscle alien is your favourite. Humongousaur, Wrath, or Forearms? Leave a comment below or on the poll guessing which one of them is my favourite for a chance to get a shout out next video, and with that, I'll be seeing you all next time. Adios, fellow heroes. Oh, actually, one last thing quickly. If you haven't seen my community tab, I recently put out a post saying that from now on, I'm going to try and do 3 videos a week. If you want to see more details, obviously go check out the post, but yeah. From next week onwards, I'm going to try and do 3 videos a week, so stay tuned.